Yes, people, what's good and welcome to Tankscape. I've got my friend Darren here with me, and yeah, another episode, guys. Welcome back. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. Right, Darren. So, bro, today we're talking about dosing, my friend.
We
Yeah.
are. We're back
Yeah.
again.
So dosing. I like two part, you like three part. We have different things. We just have a just a chin wag about dosing. But before we even have a chin wag about that, bro, your company, man, you need to let people know what you do down in Portsmouth and how it works. So yeah, tell him.
Yeah. So at the minute, I'm running basically a small little maintenance company where I can do any form of aquatic maintenance to your home aquariums, as well as one-off consultations. And any sort of products that you're looking for in the market that you're looking to add to your aquarium, you can reach out and we can sort of go from there.
Oh, wicked, man. Yeah. And I use you for my stuff anyway, bro.
Yeah.
Which brings me to like dosing, because you and I sit down for many times having coffees and not talking about dosing, what we do. I used to be a three part man. I'm a two part man. So when should someone start dosing their aquarium, you think?
When the corals are actively growing, if I'm honest with you. It was something that I used to say when I was working in the retail side of it, because I think initially you start off with, let's be honest, water changes.
Yeah,
That's where
to
everyone
keep it
start.
going.
So you
If they do
go
the
down
water
that route.
changes. Yeah.
If they do water changes, yeah, you know what people are like. Sometimes it's yeah, I've done it. Yeah, I did it. And you're like, no, you
And
didn't.
they come to you for a cup of brown water, you know. Say that's my water. Yeah, that's my water from my tank.
Or the
What?
coral I bought last week has died. What's going on? Blah 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 blah. So again, yeah, you can start with the water changes. There are elements within the salt mixes that you add to your aquarium every time you change a volume of water, whether
Hmm.
it be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. So that's where most people tend to understand what's being added to their aquarium based upon the information that's written on the bucket
Yeah.
in regards to the primary care of your corals when it comes to alkalinity, calcium, magnesium,
Magnesium. Yeah.
and potassium, because potassium tends to be added to a lot of salts as well as iodine, but potassium is becoming more of that for
Hmm. It's become
kind of ground foundation
yeah.
element, to be fair, in most products
So
nowadays.
potassium is more for blue coloration and metabolic function in it with
Yeah,
corals.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But the thing I found about, I know we were going off. The thing I found about potassium, if you dose it, yeah, and there's a requirement to dose it via ICP or testing, your sandbed becomes a bit brown if there's too much of it.
Yeah, it can be. In my experience, it tends to sort of, it's more coloration tends to intensify, or you tend to get a bit of burn in
Mm,
some of the tips. If you're keeping SPS, for instance, tend to sort of, or can be burnt
yeah.
to some degree. But again, that's another topic. But when it comes to adding things to your aquarium, um, again, the salt is where it starts.
Yeah. And test before you add.
Yeah, always look at that area before you add anything to your aquarium.
Yep.
And then we go to the other brands that are individually bottled to supplement the uptake of what's needed in your aquarium.
Okay, so right, wicked point. What is that? Okay, so look at this, yeah. If you have to say the products are available now to the average reefer, when you imagine you walk into a reef shop, I know there's Red Sea, there is Triton, there is what else is there?
You got
Tropic
aqua
Marin,
forest.
Aqua Forest, Oceamo that we use as well.
Yep,
Yeah, so me and you are big on Oceamo.
yep,
So let's talk about Oceamo just to start over. If I'm gonna go to the others. Yeah, so Oceamo,
yep,
it's a two-part solution duo. You mentioned earlier from our conversation that there's magnesium in both. I thought it was rubidium in both, but there's magnesium in both. That's why it's called the duo.
I believe. I stand corrected if I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
I'm
if we're
sure
wrong,
that that's
Oceamo, we're sorry. Yeah,
that's what the kind of the idea behind the
yeah.
philosophy is.
And there are other little products that you dose, the regulator A, regulator O.
Yep,
Regulator A has the inorganic trace elements.
yep,
When I say inorganic, that means it's readily available to corals. If it's organic, that means it's floating about the water column.
yep,
Correct if I'm wrong. And then regulator O now has iodine in there for extra supplementation with amino acids, and that's about it. And carbon
carbon
sources as
source.
well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, right, with Oshiamo, bro, yeah, what I like about Oshiamo is the fact that it falls into my ethos of having a carbon source within the aquarium so that certain bacteria can grow to take up NO3 and PO4 bacterias take up those nutrients,
Yep.
and then plankton take up the bacteria, and then the corals can feed off that to produce their carbohydrates, etc., etc. Am I wrong? Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much right there. To be fair,
Of course, I'm right.
I mean, when plankton, yeah,
There's plankton in there,
nah,
man.
no, there isn't. Not as
There's
far as I
there's
can
plankton
say.
in there.
Depends what you mean, whether it's
Spot.
phytoplankton or whether you mean planktonic microscopic organisms
That's
that
what I mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have to
are
get so
free
technical about
floating.
it, man. Yeah.
Well, I'm just not convinced that we actually manufacture that
No, we don't.
idea
We
within
don't.
our systems.
No.
But I'll get where you were coming from. You were using
I was just trying to sound intelligent, Darren,
no,
man.
that's fine, my friend. You can just roll with that if you wish. Let's keep it real.
You just
This is what we
insult me.
do.
You just insult. All right, then, cool. Let's carry on. Let's carry on.
Roll with it, brother. If you want phytoplankton, you can have
We have
phytoplankton.
phytoplankton, yeah, but yeah, go. All right. So just to clear it up,
Yep.
it's not the actual phytoplankton in the ocean, but they are planktonic creatures within our
Organisms.
organisms in our yeah
There are.
systems.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah, that take up the. I knew I was right, but anyway, let's carry on. So that's what I like about the whole carbon dosing side of Oceamo,
Yeah.
right? Now, with the two part now, the magnesium is in there, the calcium is in there in one solution, and you have the alkalinity available in the other solution.
Yep.
Correct. But within each, you have trace elements
Mixed in. Yeah.
mixed in.
Yep.
And I did a video some time ago, bro, yeah, about not chasing numbers with your alkalinity and the importance of finding a range to keep. Now, a lot of people, when they start off, the first thing they say to me is, I can't get my alkalinity to stabilize. I said to them, you need to start testing 3 times a day. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, first thing in the morning, midday, and in the afternoon to see where it is, and then you gauge it. And you try, the best way I described it to someone is trying to catch it before it falls past a certain level. So if you see it's at 8 and you test and it's dropping, 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 you start dosing more so it doesn't go past a certain number.
Mm.
If you see it's exceeding that 8, then you dial it down. So you find yourself going up a little and then back until you find somewhere you can maintain it. And it's the same thing for calcium. I found out before that's how I do 2 part, like balancing that off. With a 3 part, how would you do that? And how what's your way to do it with a 2 part as well? Because I know you probably do things differently.
Well, realistically, you should start with magnesium first.
What? How? Huh?
So, really, you need to get magnesium to a number that you find is the point at which you want to run your system at. Because magnesium
That's
tends
interesting.
to be the shelf in reefing. It tends to be the place that holds everything else in combination afterwards.
Okay,
Whenever
okay.
you add anything manually to a system, you would always start with raising magnesium first. So if you have numbers, you've been to your local reef store,
Yeah.
you've had your water tested, for instance, because it's not a realm that you've delved too deeply in yet. They've given you a little information leaflet and you've gone home with said products. Now, what you want to do first is raise the magnesium. Get that to the number 1350, 1380, 1400. Then bring your calcium up to the level where you feel is the number you want to run to, and then look at your alkalinity. Because the magnesium is the platform that supports the other two.
Ah,
Without the magnesium being in a certain level of concentration, you're going to struggle to bring the others up in line
right.
because there's a ratio between alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium
So calcium's what?
that needs to be in harmony in order for it to be utilized from the uptake perspective.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way. I've always thought about it with the calcium alkalinity, balance that off first. But me,
No, that's
okay,
the
okay.
wrong way round of doing it.
So it should
From
be.
my opinion,
I agree
you
with
always
that.
start with
I can see
magnesium
that.
first because magnesium is your buffering capacity. It's your shelf. It's your hard rock. Everything when it comes to reefing, in a sense, magnesium has to be in a realm in order for everything else to metabolically work correctly when it comes to uptake. So it's the same as when you take magnesium as a supplement yourself. Magnesium benefits us in so many ways. It's unbelievable. And a lot of us are deprived of magnesium.
Oh yeah.
If we were to take magnesium supplements, we'd be way more enhanced. We'd probably sleep better. We'd probably get better brain functioning. We'd probably get better general all-round health and sort of awareness, to be honest with you. So from a coral's perspective, magnesium is such a waterborne molecule is so demanding
Hmm.
that if that's in a good concentration, everything else flows better.
You know, as I learned something, that's a good point because it is the most abundant ion in ocean water, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely,
Right. Okay.
100%.
Okay. So you think that makes sense. So that's probably the reason why I was saying to you earlier that when my alkalinity and calcium are yo-yoing, they're going up and down. Once I increase my magnesium to, I say about 1300, that's what I've seen.
Mm,
Things start stabilizing out. Even before, once I've hit like say 1250, my alkalinity either like goes way up,
mm.
and my calcium like would just dip. And because they have that opposite effect, that seesaw relationship. So it's okay. Okay. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So with the two part, yeah,
Mm.
in your experience, you think there's any difficulty in controlling magnesium in there? Or would you just have to dose it if it's too low?
I think to simplify it, it's easier just to work out basically from testing your system at one stage and then having a look at it 7 days later, for instance, and then trying to work out as close as you can. You're never going to be 100% accurate in this game. This game isn't about 100%
Numbers.
accuracy.
Mhm.
There are plus and minus variables that occur in all factors of what we do. And then from that, you then determine how you feel the level of uptake is occurring within your system in order to
Mm.
then determine how much of each said individual bottle, for
Yeah.
instance, you dose based on the manufacturer's guide that's written on the back of the bottle. That's the easiest way to simplify our feel because they've done the R&D research in
Mhm.
said particular products that they obviously put out to market for general consumers to purchase. So by doing that, you keep it very simple because the last thing you want to do is complicate it. Let's be real.
And we do tend to do that, don't we?
You
In the
can do it
hobby,
in all
right?
sorts of
Trust me.
walks of life, overcomplicate things for no real reason. And the guys that bring these products to manufacture and to the marketing and then obviously to sit on the shelf is to simplify it.
Mm.
It needs to be easy. It's got to be in order for everybody to basically use the products. So, dosing, I would generally say find out what your uptake is based upon by using certain test kits to do that, and then follow the manufacturer's instructions on the back of the bottles and dose upon that initial instruction.
Yeah.
Once you've sort of passed that, obviously you can move to another area of dosing.
You talk
But
about trace elements and the more advanced stuff.
that's right, adding the additional supplements in order to what I call optimize your reefing aquarium. But initially, that's what all these products are good at doing. Whether it be, like you say, Red Sea, whether it be Triton, whether it be, Tropic Marine, whether it be Oceamo,
Yeah.
that's what they've spent the time, all the R&D development in. And in my experience, again, sort of spending time in the trade, it is about simplifying the product ranges. It's about simplifying everything to make it easy for every reefer to use.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with what you're saying. It has to be simple, and
Mm.
sometimes we get simple things and we complicate it. For example, they don't laugh at this, yeah. Remember the Pico I had, yeah? Well, I still kind of have.
Yep.
I done an experiment of diluting all for reef to dose in there because I had some LPS corals in there. Now, don't get me wrong, yeah. I was testing on the alkalinity just as an experiment, and it kind of like worked. My alkalinity sat around 9 DKH until the water changed. But I'm like, I could just do a big water change for a small volume of water like that. It was only like 6 gallons, 3 gallons.
Mm.
Why am I dosing Oceamo in there? I'm sorry, in all for reef in there.
Mm.
So after like a month, I was like, you know what, this is like it's kind of like overkill. It's overkill for it. So then again, you dose when your tank needs it. There's other ways to do it simply, like with a water change,
Mm.
do the water change.
Absolutely.
But for bigger systems, and having all the plethora of dosing products out there, of Red Sea and all of that, I was found myself sticking so close to what the manufacturers recommend when it comes to in the way you dose, that when things go off skew, that I struggle, but I find it difficult to adapt. For example, I know for you, you never dose. So tell me if I'm wrong. You don't dose equal parts for your alkalinity and calcium, do you?
I'm probably slightly off. I only buy a few mil here and there, to be honest. I mean, most, I wouldn't say most, let's say the majority of products, they say or stipulate to dose equal amounts.
Yeah.
So that's based upon the ratio of uptake. So when you're dosing the equal amounts, what they're saying is the uptake will be taken in equal
Amounts.
amounts. But then again, you also have to remember it has to be simplified. It's got to be easy for the reefer to use.
Yeah.
So rather than saying, well, if your such is at this and your such and such is at that, you need to add 2.4 mil of that, 3.6 mil of that, and then as time goes by, if this increases by, you need to add such, and then in the end, it kind of gets a little bit like, whoa, what's out of control here? What's going on?
You start
So
chasing numbers as well, isn't
it
it?
is in a way. So it's easier to sort of stipulate when it comes to a product. Again, it's all about simplifying the product range. Everyone has got to be able to use it from all walks of life, and it has to be a simple, basic instruction in order to understand the dosing element of the
Yeah.
product that you go home with and put into your aquarium.
Can I say something now that blow your mind? Yeah.
Go on then.
They all do the same damn thing, to be honest with you.
Pretty much, yeah. I
All do
mean,
the same
some
thing,
will
bro.
have an additional of something in it. Some have done some good sort of R&D, believing in adding such and such or something else that's different to others that just makes the product and everything slightly different in the market. So
Mm,
there's an option for everyone to have a go at. But
yeah.
the primary care concept for keeping corals alive is very, very similar.
Nah.
Very
What
similar.
what I don't get is, yeah, I understand that certain trace elements are taken up quicker
Yeah.
than others. For example, iodine, because of it's kind of like a violet kind of color and will go because of the UV. Also, I think that's how it works throughout the day. So iodine really depletes quite quickly, along
Mm.
with is it fluorine, and there's another one that is it vanadium. Anyway, when we're dosing these 2 parts or 3 parts into the system that contains these products, and we ICP test those products, I think we spoke about this last time.
Yep.
The ICP, what I understood and what I'm reading and listening to, may not be able to identify those elements in existence because they already have been taken up by the corals at that particular point when the water was taken from the system. So if you got an ICP test back and it says you need to dose fluorine to bring it up where it's supposed to be accepted range,
Mm.
if you were to do that and then today and then tomorrow you've taken an ICP to go out, it probably would show fluorine in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you took it like say 6 weeks down the line, if you didn't do a water change, it'd probably show it depleted again.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I struggle with ICP. So I'm at a point where yeah, I am dosing those minor trace elements every day to keep up with what's required for the advised range from Oceamo.
Mm.
But I know if I was to do an ICP, it will show certain things lacking for that. And that's my contention with ICP tests.
Yeah, because you think about an ICP in itself, so it's a form of analysis on the breakdown of the composition of your water at home in your aquarium. And then from that result, you're then going to focus your time and resources on trying to bring each individual element
Mm.
up to a certain number range. So you'll work weeks and weeks upon doing so. And then during that period, you'll do another ICP to see how your work and effort has paid off in regards to whether those elements have increased to
Yeah,
the numbers that you want.
they will.
But then again, obviously, along that period, you've got the uptake which occurs. So there's almost a point at which, as long as you're adding what's been recommended, you're within the realms of, let's say, safety
Yeah,
in regards to what you're dosing. Because one thing that was always said and is used a lot is never dose blind.
always test for it first.
If there's a test kit available to
Yeah,
dose to
yeah,
test for it, should I
I agree
say?
with that. I
Because
agree
you
with that,
shouldn't be
bro.
adding something to your aquarium that you can't initially test for.
Mm.
So we don't all ICP every day of the week, and we don't ICP every week.
I'm not balling like that, bro.
So when it comes to things like that, again, the advice that would be given is based upon being in a safe realm
Mm.
of natural seawater values and not overdoing it because you assume that last week it was this, so I'm now going to double it into this or dose more than I've been recommended to, because then you're opening a realm of other areas that, again, you'll have no understanding about because you're not a chemist. You're not someone that's trained in that area that understands how every ion, every molecule, every relationship between each element works and how they conform to, you know, use their individual needs in the whole metabolic way that everything is used in the ocean and how it transforms and so forth, and the relationships they have with each other. So when it comes to dosing, yeah, don't dose a product, don't dose it blind unless you can test for it. Now then the ICP gives you that option, so having to spend some time bringing it up to the numbers that each ICP gives you is this method of where we no longer implement too many water changes nowadays because of the way that we lose the hard work that's been done
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
substantiate the effort that's been put in to reach the numbers that you want when your ICP comes back.
And that's
Let's
the
be
thing.
real.
That's the thing that we're talking about. Dosing. Should you, all right, so you dose it enough to achieve those numbers, yeah?
Yep.
And then you do a water change. What does that do? It messes with the stability of, in my opinion, of the system.
It changes the whole relationship of how your reef tank's been working for so many months, so many weeks. You know, you've got to think that everything works in tandem with each other. Everything has built relationship and a harmony within that system. And then, as you know, in anything, there's always a variable factor that occurs. So when you do something like a water change, for instance,
Yeah.
that's a variable. So you're adding that to now your system that is now going to completely change the balance of what you've been working 4, 5, 6 weeks to achieve
To start again.
to then start all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so difficult, especially if like you dose in say a two, well, you dose it in general.
Mm.
You find that, okay, look, I was at say 9 DKH. You done like a 30% water change, just for argument's sake. And then you realize, oh crap, my DKH now is at 7.9. So you say, okay, I'm gonna start dosing
Mm.
more, or I need to add more alkalinity. By the time you check yourself, when your dosing's caught up, you've probably either gone past where your safe range was, and you
Mm.
have to chase numbers again.
Yeah, which you don't really want to do in the reefing game. You don't want to be chasing numbers. You just want to set point to a degree that you're happy to be within.
Yeah.
You know, you want a margin of error that you're happy to be within that range that creates the stability within your practice that you achieve week in, week out. Because, like we said earlier, you either use a water change method as your method of adding these individual elements to your system on a weekly, fortnightly, or monthly basis.
Mhm.
If that's your method, that is technically your form of dosing method.
That's sorry, that's manual dosing on about there.
That technically is manual, yeah, because
Yeah.
you're manually exchanging a volume of water with another fresh volume of water and replacing the whole concept of the foundation elements and trace elements via the content of the bucket.
Okay, right. Okay, so I've got an argument to that. Good point. Good point.
If that's your chosen
Yeah,
method of reefing,
yeah.
then that's your chosen method. Now, if you choose not to use that form of method
Mm-hmm.
and you're not so much in the water change area, but you still need to dose certain elements to maintain your system, then you would introduce the dosing
Dosing,
element of
and that
it,
could be done manual dosing
manual or via a pump
pump. Okay.
of some form,
Before
2, 3, 4 channel, however you choose
before
to.
we go into that, yeah, that's some good points. I agree with some of these points there, but I always have this little thing at the back of my mind is that to get the right amount of trace elements and other nice good things into your system, the
Mm.
water change needs to be a substantial water change to reintroduce these things. Because if, for example, you have 10% of whatever was there left and you do a water change, you only and you do sorry, if you have 100% of what's ever there
Mm.
and you do a 10% water change, you're only reintroducing like a 10%. So if I'm not gonna say that right. So if you have half of what you need there and you do a 10% water change, you're only replacing 10%. So he's only takes you back up to 60%. So you only 40% in deficit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but then again, you might be going too deep into the individual percentage of element that's been manufactured into that bucket of salt, and knowing that as you lift, say, 2 kilos of salt from that bucket,
Mm.
is every element at 100% concentration in that 2
And
kilos?
so that's what my argument is.
Technically, no, really,
No,
there
you
isn't,
don't. Yeah.
because obviously another thing, if you choose to do that level, what you'll find is you should always dry mix your bucket of salt every time you purchase it and take it home before you even use it to mix into your RODI.
So you know what's in there. Yeah.
It's more so that, but because during transit, obviously each grain is at different sizes. So what happens is it reshuffles itself, and you'll find the smaller grains are at the bottom and the larger grains are at the
Yeah,
top.
that's stratification. Yeah.
Exactly that. So what you'll find is by bringing that home, lifting it out of its bucket and giving it a real good mix up, again, to mix it all back up as it was done in the manufacturer's place of obviously packaging, that's when you have that general mix. But
Mm.
what you're saying is you're asking for every element to be in 100% concentration when you're changing only 10%, 20%, 30%.
Exactly. So it's not going to be that way.
No, it's not. But what you'll find is it's the same with anything. If that's the environment that you live in, that's the environment that most things will adapt to.
Right.
Because what you're doing is, yes, it's not in that percentage of concentration, but you'll find it's stability. You're stabilizing it, because what you'll find is we also then say to ourselves, I must stick with this brand of salt.
Yeah, but you say with brown soap, but it doesn't give stability because you clearly stated that it's not in the ratios that you expected it to be.
It will be to a degree, because what's written on the bucket is the volume of
Mm.
each individual element that's added into that batch of salt.
Right. Okay.
So it's done by a batch concept. So a certain volume of salt, let's say a ton of salt is mixed, and then there's a sample taken from that, and it's classed as a batch.
Hmm.
And then that ton will be put in so many buckets, and then it will obviously be distributed around the world. And then they put the batch on the shelf, and they have that volume there. So if any anomalies ever occur, they then reference back to that batch. They mix it up in RODI to see if there is a differential in what they claim is all the ingredient format that's in that
Yeah.
particular bucket.
What I'm trying to say is that water changes to maintain stability in a system, especially with the main three,
Yeah,
can work to a certain extent.
yeah.
I think we're talking about like one aspect of it because if you have a system that is very demanding and that, a water change would not like fill that gap for the demand to keep the corals happy.
But as a newcomer, I think no, that's where I think you might be going to the more advanced side of reefing. To
Mm.
be fair, I think if we simplify it and come back to just the newcomer format, that is just working on how they initially run their tank going forwards,
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah,
then looking at the way that the next stage would be kind of a dosing element. So from just doing general water changes to replenish said trace elements and minerals and foundation elements. That is the foundation of reefing.
okay. I get you. I understand.
Period.
I understand
There's
that.
no other way of deviating away from that.
Okay.
Once you've obviously got your head around that and you find that the tank has obviously been running successfully, your practice is implemented very well and things are thriving, then you can sort of say to yourself, well, how can I enhance my experience now? How can I move on to the next stage? The next stage would be dosing.
Right.
And that would either be manual dosing, or it would be using a pump head or pump of 1, 2, 3, 4 channel doser, to what I then call enhancing your reef tank
Hmm.
by making sure that there's a certain level of foundation elements as well as trace elements available in that water column consistently for the corals to utilize.
Okay.
And
And that
that's
comes,
it.
but that comes. I agree. I
No
100%
more.
agree with you. Well, no more. It just stops it there. Yeah.
No more, Rob.
But yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
Simplifying it.
Simplified it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we simplified. Right, okay, cool. Right, so water changes when you first starting off. I agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah. We're going to manual dosing and going to automated dosing is the next stage when you're starting off and you increasing your skill set.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, and to, like you say, enhance your reefing experience. Yeah, to now sort of say to yourself, I'm successful, I'm doing well, I'm seeing my corals actively growing. Now I want to go to the next step. Now I want to really see my corals thriving with colours. I want to see them growing at a rate of, so many polyps, so many branches, so
Yeah.
many something,
And encrusting as
every
well.
few months, and encrusting yet again, so many different heads occurring at different times. So it's what I call sort of optimizing. You're now looking at your aquarium and you're saying to yourself, I want to really go all out now. I want to fully commit because I'm enjoying this. I'm really invested in this now. I'm passionate about it. It's something that I've really gotten into and I'm really keen about. And I'm searching across so many social media platforms and seeing
Oh
these
God, yeah,
wonderful
tell me about it.
aquariums. They're thriving. Sometimes they don't show you what systems they're using.
It's a
If
journey,
you
isn't it?
must,
It's
it
a
is a
journey
journey.
how
Yeah,
they
you're
got to
right.
that.
It definitely is. So for me, that's where it all generally tends to start. You have to have a foundation, and that has to be the bucket of salt.
Okay, yeah, I agree with
100%.
that. I agree with that. 100% I agree with that. Yeah, good point. Now, talk about simplicity, yeah?
Yep.
Here's a question for you.
Fire away.
If we simplify and we say we stick with simplicity, yeah?
Yep.
Do you think simplicity is having more of a control over what you're dosing into your system? Which brings me into three part of boiling method. You can control your magnesium or your part three. You can control your calcium. You can control your alkalinity and what you dose and the amounts you're dosing,
Hmm.
rather than leaving it to a two part where you can't really control your magnesium.
Um, Again,
Yeah.
depending on what brand you use, because to be honest with you, magnesium was always added when the original boiling method came through from fauna marin. Um,
Was the Tropic Man, wasn't it?
Tropic, no, yes, no, fauna marin was the original.
Original one. Okay.
Yeah, from Germany. Yeah, I think it's I can't remember his name now. The actual guy that
Hans Ballin, eh?
that's it. That's it. Hans Christian Borland or
Ballin,
something
yeah.
like that. I think it is. Now, obviously, magnesium was always put in with the calcium. Then that's how it originally started.
So the third part of this is just sea salt. It's just the chloride that puts put in.
Yeah, to a degree, because when you used to buy initially, it was your alkalinity, your calcium, and your magnesium tubs,
Hmm.
and you would then obviously mix your alkalinity up, sodium bicarb in some warm water, and then you would add certain two trace bottles into say the alkalinity mix, and then your other mix would be the calcium chloride poured into RO water, and then you then add, once obviously that diluted up, then you'd add your magnesium into there as well, with the other trace element supplements at the same time. Or you could do it all three separately, individual, and
Yeah.
just dose them all individually.
So what's better, you think? Having that control over each
Is it
individual
really a
thing.
better? I think it's again, you could say to yourself, is it about how much space I've got? Does my cabinet hold room in order to have three containers in?
Mm.
Have I got the room to hold 10 litres of each individual, or have I only got room for two containers in? They are the elements or the areas really that you've got to look at to say, how can I set up what it is that I want to achieve? Personally, I don't really feel there's one thing that's better than the other in regards to methods.
Yeah.
I think it's just the way that you choose to reef your aquarium that determines how you're successful with how you do your
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. It's like what you're trying to achieve and the way you go about doing it,
It
innit?
is, yeah, because otherwise you can sit there and you can, like you say, you can overcomplicate it a bit more. You can sort of say, yeah, well, I want to do this and that, and I want to have that individually dosed, and I want that at this time and this, and you kind of think, whoa, 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 why am I complicating it? Why am I going down an area that doesn't
You
need to
see,
be
I
complicated?
don't think that's complicated. I think that's giving you more control of what you put into your tank.
It is to a degree, but you've got to remember that a lot of the products that are already out there, they've had so much R&D development done in it that they're basically looking to constantly simplify the concept of every product. You don't want to be setting up an array of products that you've got so many different bottles
Yeah.
that do so many different things that you've got to make so many concoctions and potions. People are fed up with that. They're
See,
not interested in
see,
that.
that's what used to
They
pee
want
me
it
off with.
simple.
That's what peed me off with Aquaforest. Like, I know this is not a plug or anything. No,
Hmm.
good brand, very easy to use if it's plug and play. But when I had to start dosing like is the components,
Yeah.
and I had to put the components in, and then an ICP test increased this component, it just started to become a pain in the backside. And then, like I said to you, like it started the cost amount with dosing each thing. I mean, it's what 70 quid now, I think, for the three components, one, two, three. Before when I got it was like 55, and I'm making the batches was 200 mil a day on a 150 liter tank. It was stable, but I still had that controllability. But I think I agree with what you're saying. It has to be simple. A lot of the products, a lot of the development that goes into it, supposed to make it plug and play and simple. Two-part solutions
Mm.
are very simple, and I think that's why I really took your advice and gravitated towards it. However, I think three-part has its merits as well, where you can control the amounts of things going in to a certain extent when it comes to dosing the amount.
But then that's only controlled by uptake. So you could
Correct.
dose far too much of magnesium, for instance, and find that the level that you're adding is way over the recommended amount needed in order for your uptake.
Okay, there's an argument to that now with, all right then.
So you could be
Agreed.
supersaturating or oversaturating a volume of one individual element that's not even being utilized to the volume that you feel it's being utilized
But
at.
but as I'm saying, with the free part or the boiling method, the free part, that
Yep.
third part, if you think your magnesium is going too high, you can dial it back. With a two part now, if it's too high, you have to do a water change.
But then that goes back to the ratio that everything is taken up equally.
Yeah, but if it's not taken, and that's my thing with the two part solution. That's my only thing with it. It's certain things like I feel I can't control.
The ratio is taken up equally. So regardless of the volume that's in the column of water, for instance, for the foundation elements, it can only be taken up in equal amounts for that ratio to work. Hence why on some products you see add equal amounts, 1-to-1 ratio of each product
Yeah.
consistently. And what you'll find is that is the baseline format for that product, because you have to have a baseline. So you bring a product to market, you can't just have an array of instructions because you don't know the whole variables of every individual aquarium that
Yeah.
uses your product. So the product has to have a baseline, and that baseline is where you will then take your instruction from and utilize that product. Then as time goes by, with your experience and your knowledge, you can then enhance that said starting point, for instance, and start increasing certain parts of it and saying to yourself, well,
Yeah.
sorry, that 1-to-1 ratio is not working for my aquarium. I don't really know why, but I'm not achieving the numbers that I would like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to now change that and add more of that than I am of that. But even though the ratio uptake is supposed to be in equal parts, it's not working for my system, because there could be a matter
Yeah.
of other variables that are influencing your aquarium that you don't know about, that's affecting the way that your uptake is actually taken.
Maybe one way around my dilemma. Good points there, but I respect them. But what I'm, uh, in addition to what you're saying, maybe a way around that two part worry that I'm having. If my magnesium's low because of that calcium and magnesium I'm dosing magnesium separately to bring the magnesium level up is another route I could probably take
Yeah,
if
definitely.
there's an issue.
Yeah, it's just a case of finding. There's tools available, and it's finding the method of how you want to implement those tools to run your aquarium successfully. If you want to have that controllability of each individual element and run your system that way, then that's fine.
Yeah.
If you want to run it again because of space saving concepts or space saving issues, then go down to a two part. But you'll find some of the two part already has a concentration of magnesium in anyway. But you'll often find that it's more just about creating stability to a degree without having to worry about the number.
Yeah, I agree with that one because what I found is the more stable your system gets, you will find, especially when you test, you will see like, and you see trends. So you test, okay, my calcium's low. I can say, okay, rather than increasing what I'm dosing, I can just chuck a bit of pure calcium in there and just raise it up and let it going to like level out.
Yeah.
Another thing I was doing, and you put me onto this, you said to me that if your calcium, you do a test and it says your calcium, say 410, and you want it to go up to 430, never dose the product that you're dosing because essentially what you're dosing is more trace elements from that solution in there. You should dose the calcium in its purest form to bring it up and then allow the doser to take control. Or you can increase the amount you're dosing every day to meet that level and to is that correct?
Yeah, so what we normally sort of say is if you want to raise your alkalinity, your calcium, and your magnesium, I would say use the neat form of those individual elements and raise them to the area that you want them to be at.
Okay.
And then obviously continue dosing the system with a certain product that has the mixed levels of trace elements that are incorporated into that. So use a powder form, or again for some people could be a liquid form depending on the concentration and the volume of water that you're trying to raise said element in. I always use powder forms to raise to the area that I want to be in, and then once that's kind of in that area, I would then dial in the dosage amount to maintain that area.
You know what I do with that as well? I always keep Aquaforest KH, calcium and magnesium just there, just raw.
Yep.
I get RDI water, check the calculator.
Yep.
And then mix a little bottle if I have to raise anything rather than going out and buying something. Excuse me. But with two part and three part, yeah, would you recommend to people starting off in this hobby to start with a three part, then go to a two part, or start with a two part and then fire and forget?
I don't know.
And
To a degree, I think there's a miscommunication or a misconcept in regards to when two part and three part, because technically, two part is three part, because the third element, magnesium, is in the
two
two part.
part, so it doesn't matter what you start
No,
with.
I think you'll probably find it's probably a bit more of a marketing concept, because what they want to do is make as more products as they possibly can to make more
But
money.
you pay more in it for the three part, don't you?
Well, you're going
You
to,
freaking
because you're
more in it.
buying three individual
With eggs,
elements
yeah.
rather than a two part. So again, it's a very clever sort of marketing issue when it comes to bringing products to the consumers and saying, well, instead of only having six products, we want 12.
Mm,
So then we make more money across 12 than we would six.
yeah.
So realistically, you've got to ask yourself the concept of two part and three part from a consumer's perspective, is it about money, or is it about space saving, or is it about individual element control?
To be honest, bro, from a business point of
You
view,
know,
it's gonna always be about money, but that's another topic. But
it
okay,
is, it
so
is, and that's the reality of it.
yeah,
That's We're being real. You know, we can get caught up again in like talking about every individual element, but we're in a hobby that is driven by consumers. That obviously marketing teams spend their time researching how they want to bring products to the market for consumers to purchase,
yeah,
and they've
I
got to
agree.
look at that. And I often sort of think to myself, there's an array of products that sometimes some companies piggyback off each other. They don't really do the good R&D development to understand what the products actually do, how they work, in order to then do all the sort of publicity behind it.
On the marketing and that.
And then, yeah, you know, the clever marketing and the YouTube channels and the social media element of how and why and this does that and everything, because you need to have that backup behind products nowadays for people to believe in it.
Yeah, you've used a lot of products. Since I've known you've gone from ATI. ATI is another good product. You've gone
Used a
from
lot.
yeah.
I originally used the fauna marine concept, the balling. I used to mix it up often in my kitchen on a Sunday, evening, and you had to obviously your RO. Used to boil the RO water on the cooker,
Really?
yeah, to melt the sodium bicarb, because it's so hard to melt down. It's unbelievable. Or I used to
That's
stick
mad.
the
That.
container in a pan of hot water and try and melt. I mean, and melt the sodium bicarb. Obviously, the calcium chloride, that was easy. That just gets really hot and warm and it just melts easy. Again, the magnesium does, but sodium bicarb to melt into a liquid form is a nightmare. And you'll often find that in this country here when you bring, let's say, your KH solution
It's also
via the mail.
it's got that thing at the bottom in it. That
It's rock.
yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a boulder of. It's because it's basically coming back into. It's obviously its saturated point within its mixing capacity, and then you'll find it's hardened because it's been set in cold temperatures,
Yeah, yeah. I was
and then you've got to rewarm it back up to
yeah.
try and melt all that back down into. So again, it needs to be kept in a certain temperature, but you try and so basically, if you went and made some RO water and you put it on the side and you mixed a kilo, you poured a kilo of sodium bicarb. I think it was about 500 grams for 1 litre solution, but and you sit there and pour it into that water. You're waiting weeks before
Mm,
that even, what I mean, turns from a solid into a liquid. So you have to warm it up.
yeah. Madness. All right. Next question. I think for us to discuss. Yeah.
Go on.
And I've had not arguments but discussions with people on Instagram about this. If you keep in LPS and SPS corals, yeah,
Mm.
will they get to a point you'd have to start dosing trace elements?
Yeah, of course it would, because
Thank you very
as
much.
far as I'm concerned, they all live in the same sea. They all live in the same ocean, maybe at different depths, but the volume of water is still the same. It makes no
Yeah,
difference.
I think you'll get to a point you'll have to start dosing individual
That's like saying, do you need
trace elements.
oxygen to breathe like I do?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? There's no difference. It's exactly the same. They come from the same environment, under the same conditions. They live literally side by side. Yeah, of course they do.
yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah. I said certain people, but people message me on Instagram asking me like during after ICP testing, especially iodine. I love mentioning iodine because it's a very talked about trace element that do you continue dosing it every day? And I'll say to them, yeah, if the ICP says you have to keep on dosing this every day in this amount, you need to keep on dosing. At the same time, you need to keep testing for it. And they say to me, I'll just do a water change, and they have like maybe a 200-liter tank. I said, a water change can do, and that's why I was asking you about water change for stability. I said, water change can do so much by replacing these trace elements. They will never hit that mark with certain ranges for specific trace elements that get depleted very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, iodine is one. Again, that's because we use things like protein skimmers, we use things like UV sterilizers.
Zinc's another one, very.
And again, iodine is something that's rapidly removed from the reef aquarium. So again, supplementing it to a degree is good. But again, you've got to supplement within a safe realm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are the iodine test kits good enough to sort of say
Mm.
I'm in the self or safe realm, should I say? Debatable.
There's that margin of error we're
It's
talking about. Yeah.
debatable.
Mm.
Again, these are home kits. These are titration kits that again have got variables that are already riddled with that particular test every time that you do it, because every test is not under the same condition, under the same time, same lighting, same heat, same, these are all variables that influence the outcome of your test. So what you're better off doing is just finding a method that is just a form of husbandry that you will repeat week after week, that doesn't exceed the recommended natural sea levels that the ICP will base its results on.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no point dosing something if it's not being utilised.
Exactly. You just be in the red,
So
innit?
just stay within that safe area, really, and if anything, be slightly under than be over.
Yeah.
Because if you don't recognise the level of, say, trace element overdose, because they will give you signs, corals will give you signs of trace element overdose, um, don't go there.
Yeah.
There's no point.
And talking about the water change, in addition to that, bro, I firmly believe that we cannot depend solely on dosing 1 part, 2 part, or bottling method to replenish trace elements. It'll get to a point where I think we mentioned this earlier in this episode that it will be depleted so quickly that we have to intervene to keep on dosing to keep it topped up. So water changes and dosing, you can't rely on it. You need to dose it individually.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, there are certain elements that you can dose that I would say individually, but the products today, in comparison to 20 years ago, for instance, are so advanced. It's come such a long way. And to almost challenge the products by saying it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, it does, but it does it within the realms of keeping your reef tank successful, keeping it healthy, not overdosing on certain elements.
Yeah.
It's kind of keeping it nice and broad and saying that we manufacture a product that, based upon our experience and our research and development, will run your system successfully within the home conditions, and you won't have any issues along the way as long as you maintain a certain husbandry concept weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. You'll be successful.
It's having those realistic goals in it.
It is. And
Yeah.
then if you want to, and I said it earlier on, if you want to become more advanced, if you want to take it to that next stage or that next area of development, and enhance the levels of these elements that are available in the ocean, that you want to achieve those levels within your home aquarium to, almost super strength your whole coral experience by making sure they have everything available to them 24/7, 7 days a week, so they can optimize their health, their growth, their metabolic exchanges, everything. Then that's when you can really go and focus in on dosing individually,
Trace elements, yeah, definitely.
or like you say, in a 2 part, 3 part concept. That, for me, again, I think it's all just about space saving, to be honest with you, the idea behind 2 and 3 part, to be
Yeah, you
honest.
think? Yeah, to a degree, I agree with that. To a degree, I would say for me, it's more of a controllability factor. And like I said earlier, it's just controlling every specific thing that goes into the tank. It's just me being like, just finicky about these things.
Yeah, and let's say we're all
But like,
individual and we're all different in the way that we live our lives. That's how things work. But I think, again, like you say, you can overcomplicate the need and the demand, because you've got to remember these companies have done all this R&D, they've done all this research, and there's said companies out there that really do a lot of good research on their products before they bring them to market. Others don't. Others tend to just copy and then piggyback and then just bring it to market. But there's others out there that really do, and they find these concoctions and they work these concoctions based upon constant research and constant feedback from consumers and everything, and they find the product that like I said earlier on, is just to simplify reefing, because you don't want to overcomplicate it. Reefing should be for everybody. There shouldn't be any drawbacks. There shouldn't be, any issues that no one should be able to reef.
True, very true. However, it's down to individual to not modify, but yes, simplify it
Mm.
so they can understand what they're doing. Because every single person, every single tank is different, and the way that tank is run,
Yeah.
it will be different.
And you're talking about obviously trying to harmonize each individual element. That's your method.
Yeah,
That's
exactly
your
how.
chosen way of doing what you want to do. Is there anything wrong with it? No.
No, just
It's
my
your method.
yeah,
It's how you want to optimize your reefing experience, to optimize your corals based upon your everyday observation and husbandry skills and every format that you use to be successful in what you do. That is how you choose to do it.
exactly. I agree with that, bro.
And
Definitely.
that's where people should be allowed to, you know, talk about their methods and the way they do things quite openly, because like you say, it brings topic of debate, because no one reefer really is better than another. They might have a better understanding, but doesn't make them a better reefer.
Mm. I always look at the tank, you know. Let me see a picture of your
There's a
tank,
lot.
bro.
I don't really have any, to be
Yeah,
fair. I don't
yeah.
often take many. I take of
No,
individuals.
not you. I just say like when people
Oh,
do,
as
yeah,
in a topic.
yeah.
I was in. Yeah, I
We
mean,
have
yeah.
to come to your spot to get pictures of videos of your
Yeah.
tank, bro. But I'll just say like when you have these debates, this passionate debates with people you meet, I always say to people, "Oh, let me see your tank,"
Mm,
so I can see what you're talking about in your results. Sometimes they have all this. That's it. They have all this theory, all this knowledge as to how to go around do this, the reason. But when you see it applied to what they're trying to achieve, you're like, "Yeah, bro, I think maybe you're not applying this correctly." But
mm,
I'll never say to them, "Your tank looks crap." I'll never say that to them. I'll just say, "Okay, I respect what you're doing, and I hope you continue to do what you're doing while I study my course." However, I can still pick sense out of nonsense. I'll say to them, "Okay, what you're saying there, that makes sense." I'll try and implement that to my system to see how best I can make it work.
mm.
But that's me tweaking things to do it the way I would see success within my tank. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and it does make sense because, like you say, you have to find a way that works for you.
Hmm.
And again, I mean, I'm quite critical, really. If I see a crap tank, I think it's a crap tank.
Mm.
And for me, it's just a simple way of saying, well, as far as I'm concerned, you're not committed. You have no real keen interest in what it is you're trying to achieve. So I think the results visually from
Not
what I'm
there.
seeing are just not there,
Yeah.
and it's not for you.
Yeah.
Um, and that might be brutal, but again, I'm just being honest, because we all can't do everything the same as everybody else.
What's
You
this?
know,
There was a gentleman, yeah, not cutting you off. There's a gentleman when I came to the shop, you mentioned about carbon dosing, and he poured, I think it was 2 capfuls of whiskey. Because you said someone said to him alcohol, pour some
it,
alcohol into your tank, yeah, and he poured about 2 capfuls of
yeah, I
whiskey.
remember the guy now.
It too.
Unfortunately, he wasn't. He was the local. Was the local drunk, to be
Yeah,
fair.
and I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, my system's not working, or this has died. I'm like, what did you pour in there? Whiskey. I was like, surely,
He was the local alky that used to come in and try and basically keep this tiny little nano tank. And every week he'd be in with a sample of water, and no matter what you said to him, it was just a complete and utter waste of time. He would never be on this planet, let alone engaged in a reef tank. He was somewhere else all the time, with a bottle in his hands. And you almost felt as if it was unjustified even talking to him, and the fact that he's been given livestock, because there was on several occasions I actually refused to sell him livestock
yeah,
because he just wasn't doing what he should be doing, to be fair. And at the time, he actually he had a little word with the owner at the time, and I still to this day stick by it. I would not sell him what he wanted on that particular day, or on several occasions, to be fair, because of the water quality that he was going to take them home in, and what I was seeing in his
yeah,
test results,
yeah,
and it was wrong, and I had a duty to the animals, really, to not be sold to him. And you're right. One day he come in, and I believe he got wind of sort of a form of carbon dosing in
supposed
the
to be
shop.
supposed to be vodka. It was no pots we were talking about.
And you think he did chuck some whiskey in there,
Yeah,
because I think at the time the conversation you ever heard was about vodka dosing.
yeah,
and because obviously being what he was, I'm afraid, obviously an alcoholic, he decided, and he killed everything in the tank instantly, almost, to be fair. So yeah, there was that. And again, as many of you know, if you work in the retail sector, you get all walks of life,
Yeah, man.
and it is absolutely, honestly,
It's down to the safety of the animals at the end of the day, isn't it,
yeah, I don't even want to
bro?
use some of the words to describe it sometimes. It literally is what it is. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. But again, like you say, it's people that have not educated themselves in what they're doing, so they kind of just,
Just listen to something and just think they know what they're talking about.
yeah.
Not done the research and then start killing animals. But yeah, bro. So yeah, as we're gonna end today, so dosing, what would you close? I would say to close off, yeah, just this is just from me, yeah, before you say what you have to say. Before you start dosing, I think you should ensure that there's a requirement to start dosing.
Mm,
I think you should understand the reason why you're dosing and what the replenish is. Um, you gave you some good pointers. Say that you should start with magnesium first, put that in a on the shelf level so they can govern the other two.
mm.
Is there anything else you want to add to like starting to dose for beginners and that what they should really look into?
No, not really, because I say most of it's all self-explanatory. Or like you say, on the instructions for each individual product. So just follow the instructions. Stay within the guidelines of what they recommend. Don't exceed any of the dosing amounts, and just work with your testing alongside your dosing to find that sweet sort of harmony that makes your livestock thrive in your aquarium. Really, that's all I can say.
No, brilliant stuff, man. Thank you so much, bro. But yeah, so next topic, what you want to cover next topic? Lighting. Lighting is a good one we should start talking about for because a lot of people I think there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of for the people that have not learned but have gained experience and the people that I've spoken to that know about lighting, it's quite interesting what they have said to me.
Mm.
And it's quite eye-opening about lighting for reef, especially like you with what's the spectra that you have in it.
Yeah, I've got a
Yeah,
Steno Spectra that I use to dial in customers' lights. Because like used to, nowadays we've got LEDs that have got so much playability on and different wavelengths and channel intensities, and you need to know what it is that you're setting up when you go home.
yeah,
So that's something that obviously, like you say, you can have a one-off consultation from myself to have that done.
yeah. So I think we should definitely talk about maybe we can come down to your tank and you can demonstrate like how you use it, the reason why you use it. That'd be quite good for people to see.
Yep,
Yeah.
we
All
can
right.
try that. Yeah,
All
give
right.
it a go.
Oh, wicked. Right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, we'll come back with a video of Darren's tank and see how he uses the Spectra. We speak about lighting and the importance of lighting. And yeah, we'll see you next time, peeps.
Laters.